Okay, now that we've set our project, I want to start populating it with some of the other objects that belong in this scene. And so you will see in the scenes folder for this project, we have an arm, a crate, and then something called Winslow version 1.0. So let's go ahead and just try importing in the crate first. So if I go to File and then Import, it's going to bring up this option. And actually, before I do that, let's go File, Import, and then choose the Options box. And you'll see here that it gives me the option for file type. And so if you know for sure that it's like an FBX file or something like that, you can go through and find it. Right now, I'm not for sure what type of file it might be. So just by hitting Import, it will set it to where it looks for all files, not just FBX. And right now, I'll go ahead and import in crate. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit Import. And so you'll notice that crate comes in. And if you look at it, it's actually not a full crate. It's actually just a part of a crate. We're going to use this to texture and build an entire crate ourselves. And you'll notice it comes in as crate poly surface 68 original. And it's got this crate colon. So anytime you see this colon in a name, it usually means that it brought it in with a namespace. So I can delete this extra camera. That's just a bonus camera. So we can focus in on this. If this file would have had a dozen different objects in it, they all would have came in with crate colon. And that's because that's the file name of what we imported in, right? So that's called a namespace. And what it does is it allows us to have two objects that have the same name in a scene. So like ship door, if I tried to import in two of the ships, then there would be two files named ship door. So if it has a prefix on there, it keeps it from being a duplicate. But sometimes importing, that means this can make your naming pretty ugly, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that namespace in this scene. So I'm going to go to Windows, General Editor, Namespace Editor, and under Crate, I'm going to say Delete, and I'm just going to say Merge with Loop. And so now you'll see it's Polysurface 68. Now, if this was named Ship Door, when we did that, it would have had a conflict. It would have probably given us an error. But we will call this Crate. Let's do Crate 01 for right now. Okay. So I want to show you, like, there's a way you can import that in and not have it bring in the namespace. So if I go to File, Import, and I scroll down, you'll see here at the bottom of my import, there's this Use Namespace option. So I could uncheck that, or if I wanted to keep it, just in case, I could say Merge into selected namespace and rename incoming objects that match. So what that means is if I had another ship door in this file that I'm importing, it would only put a namespace on something that has a duplicate name. So if I hit Import Now and choose On, yeah, let me pull all these over just so you can kind of see those as well. Probably going to put them back at the origin point afterward. But you'll see what it brought in here is this arm piece, and we are going to use this to build a robotic arm coming out of the crate. Okay, so I'm going to put that back at its origin. I'm also going to go ahead and put this crate back at its origin. I think both of those were at 0. Is that right? Yep. And just so they're in the scene. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to reference something. Now, when I said that making sure you're setting your project is very important, this can cause you to lose hours of animation if you don't do this correctly. But you'll notice in my scenes folder, I have Winslow version 1.0. Now, Winslow is a character that little alien character that we're going to be using. And he's already rigged, or it's already rigged. And I want to bring in that entire rig. So let me just show you. I'm going to File, Increment, and Save. So I have my environment 2. And I can open up the scene here with Winslow, just so you can see the character. And we'll talk about his rig just a little bit more when we start to animate him. But he has an eye. He is skeptical, right? And he has this aim for his eyes so he can look at stuff. You can rotate his head, can animate these with the feelers. And we also have the ability to sort of leave his body a little bit more like a worm. And this is gonna be fun to animate here in a little bit. All right, so we got something like this that we can animate. But there's a lot of things in Winslow. In fact, if I open this up and you can look at all of the different elements that make up this character, it's a lot of stuff in here, right? And so I want to reference in Winslow, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a couple of different ways. So if I go back and open up my environment, I could very well import Winslow and the same as I did all of the other objects I did. And it will bring them all in with the namespaces, right? In fact, let's go ahead and try that. Let's just do import Winslow, right? And if I were to leave this as default settings, right, it's going to import in Winslow. Winslow, the file name is at the beginning of all of those things now, right? And that becomes a little hard to understand, but what it also means is that if I wanted, I could have two Winslows in here, right? I could bring both of them in. If I went to File and imported a second Winslow, then you'll see I get a different name here. Instead of Winslow version 1.0, I get Winslow version 1.1. And now I can have two Winslows in here at the same time. So that's the point of the namespaces. So the problem with that is I've imported Winslow in here, but rigs are really complicated, right? And let's say I start animating on this character and further into animating it, I realize there's something wrong with the rig, right? But I have two of them in here now, right? I have to fix it on both rigs, or I delete that animation, or I don't know, something like that. So there's another way to bring in a character or bring in something complicated like that. So I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to go ahead and reopen my environment scene again. And instead of importing Winslow, because if I do that, all of those objects live in this scene now. What I'm going to try is something called a reference. So if I hit create reference, I can choose Winslow and hit reference. And you'll notice that Winslow now has this little star next to them.
Good.
So what that means is Winslow is not actually living in this scene. This scene is like sort of in the background, is also running this Maya file, the Winslow Maya file and the environment Maya file at the same time. And it's just pulling Winslow into the scene so we can see him all in one place. What that really means, though, is that if I were to go back into that Winslow file and make changes to that file, it would update it in this Maya file. What that also means, though, is that if you did not set your project correctly when you open it up, you may get an error that says we can't find Winslow because they don't know where to look. And then you lose the animation on Winslow when it tries to open it. So you have to set your project. You have to be able to find it, right? So that sounds scary, but it is a good practice to get into, because you may decide later down the road you just want to make changes to the rig, and that will allow you to do it and implement it into the scene. Right now, I'm going to continue to work as if using this reference model. The other thing is it will make my file a little bit smaller doing it that way. So I want to go ahead and increment and save, and then we're going to start talking about how to get some lighting and rendering in this scene.